Welcome to AI Book Highlights. Today we're exploring Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now.
Ah, yes, a really influential book for so many people. It's essentially a guide to finding inner peace, isn't it?
It really is. It focuses on understanding our own minds and, well, the importance of living in the present moment.
Exactly. And how that's maybe not as easy as it sounds sometimes.
Definitely not. So we've gone through The Power of Now and pulled out five key highlights that really stood out to
And
us.
some practical things you can actually do based on those ideas.
Right. The aim is to give you a good grasp of Tolle's core message, without getting totally bogged down in theory.
Make sense? Ready to jump in?
Let's do it. So the first big idea Tolle presents is, you are not your mind.
Which sounds simple, but it's quite profound, really. He argues we get too identified with the constant stream of thoughts in our heads.
Yeah, like we think those thoughts are who we are. But he suggests the mind is more like a tool, a useful one sometimes, but
But one that often just runs wild, right? He actually says something like 80 to 90% of our thinking is repetitive, kind of useless, and often negative.
that's a staggering statistic, and he calls it a leakage of vital energy. Makes you think.
It does. And his point isn't to stop thinking altogether, but to rise above thought, to become the observer.
So, using the mind consciously when you need it for focused tasks, but otherwise experiencing a kind of inner quiet.
Precisely. He talks about the state of no mind consciousness without the constant chatter, and that's actually where creativity can come from.
Oscillating between focused thought and that stillness, he throws out this challenge like, sure, you can solve a tough problem, but can you just stop the inner voice when you want to?
That's the real test, isn't it? Are you using the mind, or is it using you?
He even mentions his own turning point, that thought, I cannot live with myself any longer, that made him question the I and the self.
A real aha moment that shifted everything for him, apparently. It shows how powerful just noticing those thoughts can be.
Which flows really well into the second highlight. Consciousness is the way out of pain.
Yeah, this is central. Tolle's view is that most of the pain we feel right now comes from resisting what is, non-acceptance.
So on a mental level, that's like judging everything. This shouldn't be happening.
Exactly. And emotionally, it shows up as negativity, anger, frustration, sadness. The more you resist the present, the more intensely you feel that pain.
And the more identified you are with your mind's stories about it.
Spot on.
Mhm.
Then he brings in this concept of the pain body. Did you find that intriguing?
I did. It's like this semi-autonomous energy field made of old, unresolved pain from your past.
Right. And he suggests it actually wants to survive, so it feeds on experiences that match its energy. It loves drama, negativity, more pain.
So it can kind of provoke situations or make you react in ways that create more suffering just so it can feed. That's quite something.
It is. But the solution isn't to fight it, which he says just creates more conflict inside.
So what then?
Consciousness itself, just watching it, observing the pain body when it arises, feeling it, accepting it as part of what's happening now.
That awareness, that non-resistant observation is what starts to dissolve it.
That's the idea. It transmutes the energy. And he links fear into this too, saying it's often the egoic mind feeling constantly under threat.
Ah, so if you're stuck in your head, you're likely living with this background hum of fear.
Pretty much. It's a constant companion for anyone deeply identified with their mind, according to Tolle.
Okay, that leads us logically to the third point. How do we actually get into the now, moving deeply into the present moment?
Well, the first step is realizing you won't find your true self in the mind. You can't solve the mind's problems purely at the level of thought.
Because the core issue is identifying with the mind in the first place. That identification creates the ego, the false self.
Exactly. And a huge part of this is what he calls the delusion of time, or more specifically, psychological time.
You mean constantly living in the past, regretting or reliving things, or obsessing about the future, worrying or fantasizing?
Precisely. He argues that this mental time travel is the source of so much suffering. Most problems are just illusions created by the mind, rooted in this past-future projection.
So the key is the now. It sounds so simple, almost cliche sometimes, but he really emphasizes its radical power.
It's the only place life actually happens, right? Everything else is memory or anticipation. Spiritual teachers have pointed to it forever, but we often miss its depth.
Because we're so caught up in our thoughts. He says identifying with the mind gives it power, but observing the mind withdraws that power.
And opens you up to the now, which is timeless. He makes this great distinction. Pay attention to your life. which is always now and always real.
As opposed to your life situation, which is the story, the circumstances, the mental construct existing in time.
Exactly. Find that narrow gate, as he calls it, the present moment. That's where real life is.
That's a powerful reframe. Which brings us nicely to highlight number 4, the joy of being.
Yeah, this is about the feeling tone of presence. Tolle suggests using joy, ease, and lightness as like internal indicators.
Indicators of whether you're present or lost in psychological time.
Right. If those feelings are absent, if life feels like a struggle or a burden, it's usually a sign that thoughts about past or future are covering up the now.
But when you can let go of that constant striving, that need to get somewhere else to be okay,
And just bring your attention fully here to this moment.
then this underlying joy starts to bubble up, the simple joy of being alive.
That's it. The joy of being. It flows into whatever you're doing. You stop depending on future events for happiness. You're less attached to outcomes.
You find, as he says, the life underneath your life situation.
And your sense of self starts shifting. It's no longer built on your personal history or future goals. It comes from being, from presence.
So that constant pressure to become something more, something different, just fades away.
Yeah.
Because you realize you're already whole right now.
Exactly. You are complete now. He also talks about levels of unconsciousness, which is interesting.
Oh.
Most people flip between ordinary unconsciousness, just identified with thoughts, feeling a low-level background noise of unease.
And deep unconsciousness, which is like intense suffering when the ego feels attacked or that pain body gets triggered.
Yeah. It makes you really think about how much of the time we're truly awake and aware versus just running on autopilot.
Food for thought, definitely. Okay, 5th and final highlight. Surrender. Acceptance of the now.
Again, this isn't about being passive or giving up in a weak sense. It's a very strong conscious act.
It's about saying yes to the present moment, unconditionally, whatever it contains.
Exactly. Because resisting what is the primary source of our unhappiness, that inner friction.
But he makes it clear this works with taking action, right? It's not about just sitting there if your house is on fire.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Surrender is compatible with changing situations or setting goals.
Mm.
But when you act from that place of acceptance, the action itself changes quality.
It becomes infused with a different energy. More effective, maybe even joyful.
He calls it surrendered action. It enhances the quality of your consciousness and therefore what you create or do.
And he applies this to relationships too. How does that work?
It means accepting the other person as they are right now without needing them to change to fit your ideas, without constant judgment.
Seeing relationships as opportunities for growth and consciousness, not just vehicles for personal happiness or ego gratification.
Yeah. And finally, in really difficult times, like major setbacks or disasters, surrender is the key.
How so?
By facing the reality, feeling the pain fully, without adding a mental story of victimhood or this shouldn't be happening, accepting the isness of the situation allows you to move through it with more inner peace, even amidst external chaos.
Wow. Okay, those 5 points really cover a lot of ground. So boiling it down, what are, say, 3 actionable things someone listening could start doing?
Okay, first one. Observe your mind. Make it a regular habit. Just check in.
Like asking, am I feeling okay right now? Or what's actually going on inside me?
Exactly. Notice the thoughts, the feelings, any tension in the body. Become aware of when you're resisting the present moment. Just notice.
Okay, makes sense. Number 2.
Practice presence. Deliberately bring your attention to the now during everyday things.
Like really feeling the water when you wash your hands or noticing the sounds around you when you walk. Fully engaging the senses.
Yes. And when you catch yourself drifting into past worries or future plans, just gently bring your focus back. Back to what's actually happening right now.
Gently is the key word there, I guess, not beating yourself up about it.
Right. And the third takeaway, practice acceptance or surrender. When things are unpleasant, notice if your suffering comes from resisting what is.
And then Tolle suggests you have choices, right? Remove yourself, change the situation, or
accept it completely. Internally, at least. Choose one of those, and then accept the consequences of your choice without adding negativity or complaint.
So observe, be present, accept. Those seem like really practical anchors.
They are. They're ways to start weaving this into your actual life, moment by moment.
And by doing that, you can start chipping away at the mind's dominance and experience more of that inner peace Tolle talks about.
Exactly. Connecting with that deeper dimension of yourself that's found only in the now.
Well, this has been a fascinating look into the power of now. Some really powerful ideas to chew on.
It's definitely a book that can shift your perspective.
Thank you for joining us on AI Book Highlights today. If what we've discussed resonates and you want to dive deeper into Eckhart Tolle's work,
We definitely encourage you to get a copy of The Power of Now. It's worth reading firsthand.
absolutely. You can find a link to purchase the book in the description below. Thanks for listening.